So our disassembly and appraisal of the CBR 250R MC19 continues. I'm dreading this next step because I already know how it's going to end. We're going to take the radiator off, and there's a couple of reasons for that. We want to see what's in it and if it's blocked, and we probably should consider flushing the cooling system. We also would like to access the valve cover, take it off and have a look in there just quickly. So this is kind of sad because I know what's going to come out of here. I've had a premonition. I'm going to start by taking the radiator hose off, the bottom one. Okay, so what do we see, folks? There's nothing in there for a start. And what is coming out is rusty water. So there's been no coolant in this for a long time, of any kind. So that doesn't bode well for the bike, does it? And this radiator would be bone dry. I find it kind of interesting that the radiator is loose. Somebody's taken this off. In the not too distant past, I hope, either. Mind you, that foul water that came out of there, that's not encouraging. Okay, so for the radiator, just sort of winging it, I would say we've got one bolt there. We have a sender here. We've done one hose, there'll be one on the other side. And there's probably some sort of bolt somewhere in there as well. That's the one we want to get first, of course. Now this is interesting. I don't know if you guys can see that. Torches and cameras don't go well together. Crazy. I'll have a look later and see if that's a factory object. It could well be. Now we need to get the other radiator hose. So the lack of water explains all of the powder that was forming at the top part of the cooling system. Without coolant in there, unfortunately the cooling system will suffer. So we've got two more bolts. We've got one just there and the same on the other side. Our thermofan will probably have a cable somewhere, and then that radiator should simply come off. So the moral of the story, of course, use coolant, people, seriously. It's not as expensive as you think. These engines only take like a fraction of a litre anyway. Well, that's a bit of an exaggeration. Probably would take A leader. So I'm just trying to keep all of the bolts together. I find it's better to try and keep putting the bolts back into the holes where they came from. Wherever possible. And that just stops you from ending up with endless containers full of bolts. No real idea where they belong. So we'll investigate these guys later. It's the locating pin on that one. And that's just a loose bolt. Happy days. I've just followed the wire up to the nearest connector and unplugged it. Have a look at that. That's just nasty. So a big sigh there you all heard. Just looking at the radiator now. Actually looks fairly serviceable. We'll check that out a little further. So here's our engine without the radiator and whatnot obscuring our view. It's quite neat, really. I'll put my hand in there so you can put it in a proportion. It's a really small 4-cylinder. The pistons for these things would be about the size of a whippersnippers, I guess. I do actually have a set in stock of standard pistons, rings, gudgeon pins, circlips, the whole lot. I'll dig those out so we can all have a bit of a giggle at those. In some video down the track, who knows, we might even be putting them into this motor. I do want to try and keep this motor Honda. I want to keep it absolutely factory if I possibly can. For a number of reasons, of course. You know, not that there's any issue with the aftermarket parts. I mean, if your pistons are worn out, they're worn out, and Honda stopped supplying pistons for these engines a while back, I believe. So really, the fact that anything is available is a bonus, in my opinion. The lack of water in the radiator is troubling me. I don't like the idea of an engine being dry, and I do wonder where that water went. Did somebody drain it out? Is the motor bleeding from somewhere? It could be just as simple as that radiator has got a split in it from the accident. It's speculation at this point. But this is the reason why I've taken the steps to assess the engine before we fire it up. If there is anything wrong in there, and I still don't believe that there is anything major wrong in there, starting it up won't make it better. It will just make a bad situation worse. So we'll continue with this. We're going to take that valve cover off in the next video and have a bit of a look at the valve clearances. Not so much so that we can check and adjust them. If we check them and there is one that is notorious, is incredibly wide. What we're actually probably looking at is a valve that is not seated properly. But that's for the next video. Check it out when it comes out.